The series itself is a tangled mess of timelines and retcons, so of course understanding who's the legend gets muddier than Goku's understanding of personal space. The story starts with this mysterious universe-shaking Saiyan who's supposed to be so terrifying that even the Namekians put him in their bedtime story. But the legend was never clear in the first place. Is it the first Saiyan to transform, the strongest, the one who rampages the most, or is it just whoever happens to be glowing gold and screaming the loudest that week? The truth is, the title's been thrown around so much, it's basically become the employee of the month of the Saiyan race. Everyone gets a shot eventually. Now let's evaluate the candidates for the legendary Super Saiyan, because if you thought there was a simple answer, you clearly haven't watched Dragon Ball or tried to make sense of its lore. First up, there's Yamauchi, the original rebel. He's the guy Toriyama finally admitted existed after decades of fans arguing in forums, and apparently he kicked off the whole legend by fighting evil Saiyans. And naturally dying dramatically. Of course, history being what it is, the surviving Saiyans painted him as some bloodthirsty monster, because you know, history is written by the winners and all that. Then you've got Goku, who spends the entire Frieza saga being hyped up as the one who'll fulfill this ancient prophecy, and he actually does it. He's the first Super Saiyan anyone's seen in 1,000 years, give or take a few centuries, depending on which retelling you're reading. But once Goku cracks the code, suddenly everyone and their half Saiyan kid is going Super Saiyan. Vegeta, Gohan, Trunks, Goten. It's like Super Saiyan Oprah out here. You get a transformation, and you get a transformation. So if you're hoping for exclusivity, sorry, the club's a bit crowded now. Now, if you're a fan of big muscles and even bigger plot holes, you probably think Broly is the real deal. In the old movies, he's literally called the legendary Super Saiyan, and he spends his screen time rampaging across galaxies because, well, subtlety isn't really his thing. And this is important, he's not canon. That's right, all that screaming and smashing is non-canon. The guidebooks tried to make sense of it, but honestly, it's like trying to explain why Yamcha keeps showing up. And then there's Bardock, who gets a non-canon glow up in episode of Bardock and becomes a Super Saiyan in the past, but that story clashes with Yamauchi's, so it's basically fan fiction with a budget. And now Cell? Well, some people will tell you he's a Super Saiyan because of his aura and transformations, but unless you think copying someone's homework makes you the class valedictorian, he's not really in the running. Now, let's not forget Kale from Universe 6, who's basically Broly with a different haircut and a slightly less tragic backstory. She's called the legendary Saiyan in her universe, but the translation wars mean nobody can agree if that's the same as the legendary Super Saiyan, or just another case of Dragon Ball's marketing team having a field day. And finally, you've got the original Super Saiyan God, who's just off doing his own thing in the non-canon corner, and the rest of the Universe 6 Saiyans, who don't even have a legend to live up to. So, after all that, what do we have? Goku and Yamauchi are your canon legends. Broly and Bardock are the kings of non-canon. Kale's got her own weird legend. And the rest are either riding the coattails or just making things more confusing. If you're still keeping score, congratulations. You might actually understand Dragon Ball better than most of its writers. Now, just because you think you've got the whole legendary Super Saiyan thing pinned down, let me throw you a curveball. Elcar. Yeah, I know, you're probably thinking, who? And that's exactly my point. According to some long-lost Namekian scrolls, there was a Saiyan named Elcar, who makes all these other so-called legends look like they're playing dress-up. See, Elcar was not only strong, but he was dangerous in a way that actually mattered. He threatened the Saiyan monarchy, not with brute force alone, but with ideas. Apparently, he wanted to change the entire Saiyan society, which is a fast track to getting wiped from the history books. So why haven't you heard of him? Simple. The monarchy did what every paranoid regime does when someone steps out of line. They erased him. Not just from the records, but from the legend itself. The story got twisted, the details got fuzzy, and suddenly the legendary Super Saiyan became this vague, one-size-fits-all myth that anyone could wear for a day if they yelled loud enough. Meanwhile, Elcar's actual story got buried deeper than Raditz' self-esteem. The Namekian scrolls hint that his spirit or his will or whatever you want to call it has been reincarnated. And where? On Earth, naturally. Because if there's one thing Dragon Ball loves, it's making Earth the center of every cosmic soap opera. The scrolls are annoyingly cryptic about who this reincarnation is, but the implication is clear. The real super duper Saiyan isn't Goku, isn't Broly, and probably isn't anyone you'd expect. Let me give you the evidence, because without it, this is just a good story. First off, the whole history is written by the victors thing. That's the Saiyan monarchy's entire playbook. They had every reason to scrub Elcar out of existence. A Saiyan with overwhelming power who also wants to upend the system? Yeah, that's not the kind of bedtime story you tell your kids if you're sitting on the throne. And the Namekians, bless them, have always been the universe's unofficial librarians. If their scrolls say Elcar existed, I'm inclined to believe them over whatever propaganda the Saiyans cooked up. Second, look at the way the legend itself has been used. It's been a tool for fear, for control, and for keeping the Saiyan population in line. The original description of the legendary Super Saiyan wasn't just about raw power, it was about someone who changed everything, for better or worse. That's what Elcar was. Yamoshi's story, Goku's big moment, even Broly's rampages, they all echo bits and pieces of Elcar's real legacy, but none of them quite fit the whole picture. And finally, there are the little hints scattered throughout the Dragon Ball universe. Mysterious surges of power, characters who don't quite fit the mold, and a recurring theme of lost history coming back to bite everyone. The reincarnation twist is actually a reminder that you can bury the truth, but you can't kill it. So while everyone else is busy arguing over who gets to wear the legendary Super Saiyan crown this week, the real answer might be quietly walking around Earth completely unaware of the chaos their past life caused. The reason this whole legendary Super Saiyan business matters goes way beyond just who can bench press the most planets or who's got the shiniest hair. It's about power, sure, but it's also about who gets to write the story. The Saiyan monarchy, for example, wasn't exactly in the habit of handing out medals to rebels like Elcar. If anything, they were more interested in making sure nobody even remembered his name, you know? That's politics for you. If someone threatens the system, you bury them under so many layers of propaganda and half-truths that 1,000 years later, nobody even knows what's real. The legend itself became a tool first to scare the universe, then to control the Saiyans, and finally to inspire a new generation when Goku broke through and made the impossible look easy. Suddenly, what was once a terrifying myth became a badge of hope, or at least a really good excuse for Vegeta to have another existential crisis. But the legend's real magic is how it keeps getting reinterpreted. Think about it. Goku's transformation on Namek was a redemption arc for the whole Saiyan race. He wasn't the strongest by birth or the most ruthless. He was the guy who got there through grit, loss, and a head injury or two. If you want to talk about Bardock, sure, his power level was nothing special, but his story shows that it's not just about raw strength. Sometimes it's the bonds, the rage, the sheer stubbornness that pushes someone over the edge. And then there's Broly, who, if you decide to count him, basically throws the whole system out the window. He's the legend in the sense that he's a force of nature, but once he exists, suddenly everyone else starts catching up. It's like the 4-minute mile. Impossible until someone does it, then suddenly it's open season. That's why the legend matters. It's not a story about one warrior, but about how stories themselves get twisted, reused, and weaponized. The Saiyans, who survived Frieza's purge, grew up thinking the Super Saiyan was a myth. And then, thanks to a perfect storm of trauma and opportunity, it became their new reality. The more they understood, the less legendary the transformation became, until eventually kids like Goten and Trunks were going Super Saiyan before they could even do their homework. Exceptional circumstances, sure, but that's what makes it legendary in the first place. So when you step back and look at the mess, the real lesson isn't about who the legendary Super Saiyan is, but what the legend has done. It's been a weapon, a prophecy, a warning, and a promise, sometimes all at once. Goku's transformation redeemed the Saiyan race. Broly's rampage redefined the myth, and Elcar's erased story shows just how much power there is in controlling the narrative. Honestly, the legendary Super Super Saiyan could be anyone at this point. Yamoshi, Goku, Broly, Kale, or even some random Saiyan we haven't met yet. The legend keeps shifting depending on who's telling the story and what decade it is. So, who do you think actually deserves the title? Maybe it's time we just let Yamcha have a shot. He could use the win.